This podcast is presented by the Commercial Space Project Group of the Space Generation Advisory Council. The SGAC, in support of the United Nations Programme on Space Applications, is a non-governmental organization and a professional network. Its goal is to convey the perspectives of students and young space professionals to the United Nations, space agencies, and academia. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Commercial Space Project Group podcast. I'm your host Tsovinar Avagyan and
I am Julia, one of the regional coordinators for South America for SGAC.
Today we are joined by not one but three amazing guests, and we are united by one big question. Should Latin America prioritize global competition or regional collaboration in the space activities? Latin America has been making real strides in the space sector. We've seen companies like Satellogic in Argentina, Visiona in Brazil, and Durium Labs in Mexico break through. But with global players dominating the industry, what is the best path forward? Should LATAM countries compete individually, or is regional collaboration the key to long-term success?
We'll break this topic down into three questions. What are the best business opportunities in the space sector for Latin America? Can the region realistically compete with established space nations? And should Latin America prioritize regional collaborations or focus on national development?
To explore this, we're joined by three incredible guests. Daniela, Mera, and Matías Campos from Astralintu, bringing in a commercial perspective from within the industry, and Gabriel Sanca, a researcher at UNSAM with expertise in R&D and technological development in Latin America. Thank you all for being here, and let's jump right into the first question. What do you think are the biggest business opportunities Latin America can access in the space sector?
Well, to get started, thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the introduction. For the listeners, this voice is Matías Campos from Astralintu Space Technologies, Ecuadorian startup focused in ground stations as a service. So this question you just asked, Tsovinar, is the same question that I asked myself 5 years ago when I founded Astralintu. And it is when you're in Latin America, you know there are a lot of opportunities. There's especially a lot of interest and possibilities for space to have an impact in a region. But the key thing is to think about it as a business opportunity. What can we do that is sustainable, that can create a self-sustaining wheel of activity, of space activities in a region that can, at the end, ground these benefits back to ground. So in that sense, this is the question that I asked myself, and it took 2-3 years of really seeing what can we do, and it was not what can we do, what can we replicate from what's out there being done in the United States, in Europe, in Asia, but rather what from Latin America we can produce, what are our unique selling opportunities, what are our unique values that we can provide to the worldwide space community. And well, to answer in short, that I hope that I know that Astralintu is that answer. A ground station as a service is what from Latin America we can provide the global space industry while it still matures and we still grow. It's a vector of new opportunities in Latin America. So it's a first step towards having a market be realized. And yeah, so that is the idea, is to have a business that can provide from Latin America service to the established actors from regions such as the ones that I mentioned, while opportunities and other business models start appearing from Latin America. So yeah, that would be my answer, and maybe Danny, you can jump in with some.
Yes. So thank you so much for having us. This is Daniela Mera from Astralintu. I'm the CMO and co-founder. And well, just a little bit of introduction. It's funny because Matías and I founded Astralintu almost 5 years ago. Matías is an aerospace engineer. I'm in the marketing and communications field. And it's been an amazing journey, especially because coming from such different fields, we knew our strengths and weaknesses, which is also something very important to partner with someone that can complement you, right? But that's another topic for another moment. But in what Matías was saying in terms of Latin America and how we see the space industry growing here, that is something that we needed to experience in terms of trial and error to understand what really works here, right? So 4 years ago that we started working in Astralintu, Matías came with the conviction that he wanted to bring his knowledge that he studied and that he got from the US, universities in the US, and his knowledge that he got working in Germany to Ecuador, right? To benefit our community, because space is not only something that can benefit, let's say, more established stores or more developed countries, but especially in developing countries such as ours, in our case, Ecuador, such as our region, Latin America, it's so important to make people understand what is the benefit of space, right? I think we've been sold a narrative in terms of like space being something that is not for us or the man on the moon, but we know here and like the people that are listening to this podcast that space is so much more than, especially for our communities that are in need of so many basic things. Space can be an answer that can benefit from the bottom up. So with this trial and error that Matías was talking about, and in terms of how our journey has been, we started doing something. We started building space grade components for satellites, right? And we quickly noticed that that was not the way, because there are actors in other countries that have been doing this for a lot more years. At the end of the day, we're a business, we're coming from the industry side. So this was not something that was going to work for us in terms of business. So we were thinking, actually, what do we have here, right? And that is the equatorial advantage. It's talking specifically about Ecuador, right? And in terms of GSAS, or Ground Station as a Service, we noticed that that was something that was missing. This equatorial gap that GSAS has in this moment and that we could bring to the table. So that's where our business model actually developed. We went to different startup pitching competitions in Europe, and they validated our concept, and that's how we could develop it, right? And even though we cannot, our main the people that buy our services, our main clients are not in Latin America yet. We are here building it, structuring it, building it for the Latin American business, but selling it elsewhere until an infrastructure can be developed. So like Matías said, is something that comes from here, comes from understanding what our advantages are, not only in terms of location, but also in terms of capacity building, and then seeing how we can not even, let's say, help actors in more established countries, but how can we work with them and how can we can benefit them from the place that we're at.
Well, here is Gabriel. Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you for having us today and being in the other side, listening to this podcast. I think it is a great opportunity to express myself and also to being in contact with colleagues in Latin America and trying to reduce this gap and trying to be in close contact with more people is always good. I was thinking about this question. It seems like Matías and Daniela both had this question in their mind for a lot of years because it's part of their business and they started several years ago with this. So I had some notes before coming. I was prepared, and I was thinking about three main ideas. The first is maybe pretty obvious because I'm part of the university and I'm every day. Not only imagine new research opportunities and ideas, but also trying to understand how to make the human resources we are training better. And I think that the first idea is related with that. The biggest opportunity I think we have here in Latin America are the human resources. We had nothing to be afraid to compete to Europe or Asia or wherever you're thinking about, or the United States. I think there is a big talent here in Latin America. And I think this idea must be not for export talent, but this talent to be here in our countries and trying to develop their ideas here, trying to avoid the football players market that they go to Europe or something else to play. I mean, I want our talent playing here in Latin America. I think is very important. Building a strong local network and an ecosystem that could have opportunities of developing and growing here in the region. The second idea is maybe a geographic advantage or very important position. Both Daniela and Matías, they know what I'm talking about. They talking about ground station as a service. They are in Ecuador. It's a very key geographical point to be in order to have ground stations and to work related to that, but also having not being only near Ecuador, but also being at the south of the world, and to have ground station that could not compete but be complementary to those that are in northern hemispheres. So it's interest to be in Latin America as a geographical advantage in that sense. Also, because we have a lot of land and a lot of natural resources that could be exploited too in a very positive sense, and we can imagine a lot of companies that can be developing here. And well, the third idea is like we are cost efficient. We can compete with Europe, with the United States. We are in country that can be very cost effective in that relationship. And there is another thing that we are in a very peaceful region. We are not involved in any conflict right now, and it's really important to the development of ideas, market, attract people to come here, not only to make business, but also to study and to share their knowledge. So I think we have these three main ideas that would be like an advantage for all the region.
Thank you, Gabriel, Daniela, and Matías for your insights. And now I would like to ask, can the region realistically compete with established space nations? What do you think?
Yes, and I like to say that we are Astralintu are one example of that. You mentioned some at the beginning, Tsovinar, as well with Visiona, with Satellogic. But from our perspective, and of course here with Danny, we can tell you more. And we, of course, there's certain challenges associated to starting a business in Latin America. There's those challenges get even more depends and they have more impact when it's a space company that you want to do. So it definitely is not easy, but we mentioned the opportunities, and Gabriel made a huge point in that the human resources that we have in Latin America are amazing. Like we have a lot of people that have done space careers abroad. We have very qualified engineers and multidisciplinary people, as Daniela was saying, like to innovate and to bring space to Latin America. We have to work multidisciplinarily. For example, Daniela and myself, we founded Astralintu from an engineering background on my end, but from a marketing and design background on Daniela's end. And that is how we compete with a developed country, is we take that very highly qualified Latin American human resources and people and new generations capable of working multidisciplinary to bring these opportunities to our countries. And with Daniela, she can tell you more, but we've created a brand, a company that looks, and it doesn't look like something that's coming of Latin America, that it's not high quality, but it is a company, it is a brand that evokes the high quality technology, the space grade technology that the global market is looking for. In that sense, yes, we can complete, and these other space nations maybe have broader access to capital, They have easier access to laboratories and infrastructure that is not as available in Latin America. But we can realistically compete by bridging that gap, by starting in a sustainable manner, finding a business model that can have like a feedback loop where what you develop feeds the business in a way. And as Gabriel was saying as well, ground station as a service allows us to maximize our regional opportunities in the equator, as Danny was saying, with our equatorial advantage, but also in the south, complementing the opportunities for polar tracking from the north. But then that's just the beginning. That is that maybe needs a lot of more capital to invest on the ground stations, but then that is a port of information. So to the listeners that are thinking, okay, I want to be part of space, but how do I compete with people that are already doing space or in other regions or have more opportunities than I do? It's not, don't look at what we don't have. No, rather, don't look at what we don't have that others have, but look at what we have that we can provide. And right now, we have in the region, we have a growing ground station and service business, and that is a port of information. So now the barrier to start using that information is a lot smaller. So think about not what we're missing, but what we have that we can start using, and that is how we can compete with more developed countries to maximizing our opportunities and that values that we have.
Yes. I don't know if we can compete. Really, I don't know, but I think it's a must. I mean, we have to compete because this is there are like very strategic technologies, and there are. It's important to be in a space, to have companies in a space, to have universities that are teaching how to reach a space in many ways, to have and the space agency or the government look into to the space. We, I think we cannot ask if we can or can't compete. I think we had to go to the competition. I mean, um, of course, we had to be realistic. We cannot win a race that started 50 years ago. We had to starting with new ideas and try to make a new track in which we can go or run or be in this competition. But I think it's a must. There are like it is technology that the developed countries won't sell to you just because they want that. This is very um, very important kind of technology, and the access to them is not easy. The people and the countries that know how to they work will not share as easily as we want. So the idea is we must compete because we can lose track. The humanity will use space in many sense in the next year. So Latin America cannot be out of this discussion at least.
Yeah, and just starting on what Matías and Gabriel say, I would like to emphasize also the word collaboration here when we're talking about competition, because I know that they sound like opposite words, but actually they're not. And especially coming from a Latin American country, we have seen in our journey that the collaboration, not only between Latin American companies, Latin American educational institutions, but also from companies, institutions from Africa, from Asia that are also considered developing countries in terms also of how they're developing in space is huge. Honestly and realistically, we couldn't be where we are now in terms of having investment and in terms of moving our project forward if it wasn't because we collaborate with each other. We have collaborated since the beginning, right? So just thinking about specific cases, we have partners in Costa Rica, we have partners in Colombia, we have partners in other parts, in Brazil, other parts of Latin America. But we also have partners in in South Africa. We have partners in different parts of the world that make this collaboration something that we all build up together to the point that we can then actually start competing, right? And I think that it's also very important to emphasize that the space industry overall and the organizations such as the International Astronautical Federation or Space Generation, SGAC, they also, I don't want to say help, but they collaborate with developing countries in order to bring opportunities that otherwise would be less accessible for us. So having that in mind and knowing that all of us, that we have challenges, and yes, there's an extra barrier in terms of the challenges that we have to surpass to get to a level of being able to compete, we also have to see what advantages we have, right? And how other developed countries or how the industry itself is also pushing towards these actors from less developed countries to get to the level and to give us the resources to help us help us not only compete but collaborate with them, because as we were saying in Astralintu, our service, the service that we will be providing, that we provide with Equatorial Ground Station, it actually also helps established actors in the GSAS industry, right? So we're giving them another point that we can download information from. It's not that in this case they become actually competitors, but we collaborate into bringing more data points into the GSAS industry. So yes, competition and collaboration would be something that I would put up there in order to advance at Latin America and other developing regions.
I can't agree more, Daniela. I think competition is not isolation. I mean, this very good to point out.
Absolutely. I think it's safe to say that competition is like a natural part of interaction, and it doesn't have to stand in the way of cooperation. But for that cooperation to be truly effective, especially across countries in the region, there needs to be some sort of structure supporting it. So let's dig deeper into that. Who do you think should be driving this collaboration? Should the private sector take the lead, or is it the role of governments to shape a regional space strategy? What do you think?
Well, I could start by answering that. And it's actually a very interesting question because just a few days ago, we had a meeting with one, the Ecuadorian Air Force, which actually is the one that takes the lead on space here in Ecuador because we don't have an agency. And that was actually a question that came up, right? Like, how do we create this? As we said before, we're the first private, Astralintu is the first private company in Ecuador doing space. So it's like, who should take the lead, right? They need us and we need them. And at the end of the day, the answer came to be, we need each other. So in this case, we as Astralintu, as the private sector, we can help them with the experience and the knowledge that we know from outside. Actually, we're working with a partner, and they have worked with space policy in France, so we can connect them to them. But of course, nothing can happen if the government doesn't really give the chance or open the doors for this to happen. So it's a collaborative effort. And I think that, for example, in the case of Ecuador, because we're starting as Astralintu, and they want to also start like in the right way, it's a perfect moment. They were asking also like, yeah, but it's like just one actor. What if things change in the future? You know, and we were like, yeah, but at least there is something that is paving the way for the future companies that come here in our specific country. So yeah, all that to say that it's an effort that both have to be willing to do, and of course it's going to take time and it's going to take a lot of resources, but if both are willing to do it, we know that it's for the benefit of an ecosystem that is coming, especially in the case of Ecuador. I don't know, Gabriel, in your case, what do you think?
Yes. I love hearing Daniela and hearing that these discussions are happening. It is important. I was thinking about the leadership regarding which area. I mean, for sure, the technology or the innovation, I think it will be in private sector with collaboration maybe with the universities or some research centers. But all the legal resources and the legal area has to be with the states, with the nations, and with the global mindset. I think we can't just think about Latin America and Europe and the United States like separate things, because the space is above all of us and should be discussing collaboration with the global mindset and having in mind those ideas and the kind of activities that are related with the space industry. So I think there is several things to be discussed. The technology has to be in one area very important. We have to foster the innovation. We have to drive innovation. We have to pursue the innovation. But in the other hand, we have to think about how countries and how the companies inside these countries and how the research centers are going to talk with each other and how we are going to organize this huge work we have to do. But it's really interesting. I don't have an answer. Just more questions, I think.
Yes, from my side, I'll say that it's not really. There's no right choice for this. Like an ecosystem is a collection of actors. Traditionally, it has been thought that the government should take the lead because of the traditional like efforts from NASA, ESA, JAXA, Roscosmos that show that ecosystem can be driven from the government. But now we're experiencing the democratization and privatization of space, where more actors are as capable of driving an ecosystem. So I wouldn't say that there's a one only definite answer that it's industry or government, but rather whichever from the ecosystem that is stronger in the emerging space ecosystem or emerging space nation should be the driver. So let's say, as Danny was saying, in a country where there's no agency, but you have a strong startup scene or industry, then maybe that industry should pave the way and bring the other actors with them. For traditional actors that I mentioned, it made sense for the government to be the driver. But there are other countries, for example, Chile, where the driver of the space efforts has been the academia, and now the military is also joining in. In Colombia, it has been the military driving the aerospace force driving the efforts, but then also startups and the civil society are joining the way. So it really depends on the case by case ecosystem where the strongest of the four nodes can be the one that drives the space development in that nation.
Yes, they are like several pieces of a big machine, and they have to be coordinated and working together. That's, I think, my first answer to this question. But um, is a leadership needed? Not sure, but I think the coordination is important, and we have to think about other industries. I don't know, cars industries. The private companies are making cars, but there is regulations on how they work, how they operate. So I think what Matías said is a key point on this.
Yes. No, yeah, and I agree with that, Gabriel. Maybe in this, let's say, if it was like, I don't know, the textile industry within a nation, that can be like something that's taken care of within the nation. But let's say space is also an ecosystem part. Like even if you want to develop a national or regional, like you are part of a whole worldwide industry, and then maybe the
I say Ecuador has no space agency. It doesn't matter because you have to to sell to other countries. So at the end, you will be discussing with maybe another country, but you have to go there and sell services. It's really, really interesting and challenging.
Exactly. As part of our global effort, I think there should be a national leader, but that national leader should be the one which is most connected with the regional and the worldwide global ecosystem, so that everything aligns. Because it's a piece of a puzzle, not necessarily a puzzle on itself.
Yeah. On the other hand, sometimes you need the state to the countries to sell to another country because they are like this is
Yes.
key components, and it's not easy to say, "Hi, I'm doing a satellite. I want to sell to another country." You
Exactly.
you need your country and the international relationships to do that. So
Exactly. We need each other, really, as Danny was saying.
of course.
Yes.
Well, I think it's we have interesting responses. I can also add that we will have the first podcast in Spanish where we were discussing with someone from Chile and also someone from Uruguay, and we had like a question similar to this. And I think it's interesting as emerging space nations, we have the possibility to decide what it's going to be our approach. We are thinking about it. Like there are nations in South America who had like a longer history in the space sector, so they have like organisms that are leading by the government. But then countries like Uruguay, for example, they are thinking about having a more um, space agency more related with the companies, where they will have like a government also integrated with the state. So I think that's a really interesting approach.
Yeah, Jude, I think that as Latin America, we're in such a good place to shape our own, let's say, policies and shape it the way that we think that is best for our country. I think that we have, like Gabriel and Mati were saying, we have such good examples of things that have worked and haven't worked from the world, that as active space actors in emerging ecosystems, we have a voice and we have knowledge to be able to work with our governments to shape something that works for us.
Yes, totally agree.
Exactly. I think we can go to our final question. This is, what do you think of the newly appointed Latin American and Caribbean Space Agency, ALCE? Do you think it can become like the European Space Agency? Do you think that would help or hurt the industry overall? I don't know who wants to start.
I have like two ideas in mind. The first thing is Latin America is so big compared to Europe, so that's like a geographical problem, we can say. Okay, you can there is like meeting, and that could be done using these new technologies, and there is not a problem. We don't have to travel, but at the end, having like a so big territory could be like a problem comparing to Europe, because there is a lot of mobilities and students and professionals and several centers in which a lot of people are going and going back to their country. So I think that's a problem, not a big one, but Latin America is really, really big. I mean, Argentina and Mexico, they are like many kilometers far away. Um, we have maybe something good, that is the our zone time. We are like very similar, but maybe we can have like 2 hours difference between Argentina and Mexico, but we are like related. We speak the same languages. Maybe not with Brazil, that is like a very important actor here, but we can understand with them. But I think the And on the other hand, the European Union is like a very important consolidate thing. I say it's something that is working. They have their own currency. They have their own zone in which they can move from one country to another with no problem. So I think the European nations have a previous history of collaboration before this all happened that I think in Latin America we don't have, and we have like a very big territory. So there are 2 points here that might be discussed maybe, how to think how to go through a very or best integration between all the countries. I don't know, what do you think about this?
Yes, I totally agree, Gabriel. I think that also has potential, but I think it really lacks some of the fundamental elements that the ISA member states had when ISA was created. When ISA was created, there was a lot of countries that had already had some
Yes, it was like
experience. Exactly. They had like strong and technical academic institutions, for example, like France, Germany, Italy, the UK. They had some experience with military rocket programs. I think that in Latin America and the Caribbean, we still lack that. And I think that there are like 3 key points that, as Latin America and the Caribbean, we need to really work on to, let's say, maybe one day get at the level of visa. Maybe the first one being like the regional cooperation. I think that we are still in extremely early stages for that. And as you say, Latin America is so big, and I think it has some of the difference that regional cooperation would be the first thing. And then something that, of course, now it's developing, but it's like the capacity of space technology across the member countries. And the last one that I think is the most important one is the fact that ISA has consistent funding, right? So I believe that they have funding like of, I don't know, 7 billion. I may be wrong, but it's a lot of funding, and we don't have any comparable or reliable funding structure yet in us. So I think it has the potential, of course, but first the countries have to develop internally, as we were discussing in the last question, in order to then start creating a structure that could be comparable to what ISA has. And of course, ISA has many decades, and I'm sure they had this problem at first as well. But it starts in house, and I think that in house, meaning inside the countries, first we have to develop strong policies. We have to have reliable projects that we have, and of course, talking about the funding, understanding how that works in Latin America in order to have something comparable.
Yeah, from my side, I think that this is a conversation we usually have in conferences, and there's mixed opinions. Some people say we are ready to have it and that it'll be a driver, and some people say we're not ready. That it could. Uh, so yeah, I often incline to the we're not ready yet, and that. But I don't think like in the question it was framed as if it was going to be harmful. I think we're not ready yet, but it's not harmful to have it to have also start. Like it's we're not ready yet, but we will never will be, right? Like if you wait till you are ready, then you will never start. So I think it's a good step forward for also to be created. As Danny and Gabriel were mentioning, there's mechanisms that are not in place that will have it be a full-fledged agency yet, but it's a great start and to show cooperation between nations that are known to be easy to cooperate with compared to other places on the planet. We share culture, we share language. So there's things we don't have, but there's things we do have that could potentially make it very efficient. But yes, we always look at ISA and as an example. But I've also heard a lot of people say ISA is it's not the best system in the world, and a lot of my European colleagues and friends say they'd rather have visa be different in so many ways and less bureaucratic in some others. So it's also about learning and not copying something that wouldn't work for Latin America, but creating something that's tailored to the needs of Latin America. And also, I think it's very important to see also what the African Space Agency is doing. Like they were recently inaugurated in a couple of months ago, and I think that the governments are very interested in space, being such a large continent with different uh, environments to invest on the space development, and it shows like they have a campus in Egypt where there's top technology laboratories and meeting rooms, and they invited everybody to inaugurate the agency, and maybe that's something that also needs. It's a country to take the lead like Egypt did for Africa and invest on the creation of a place where these gatherings can happen and where technology can be developed. Because if it's only an agency that works in the political aspect, in the general assemblies of the different nations, but it doesn't have a location where the space people, the engineers, the different actors and people that work in space to engage with each other, I think it's hard for it to advance. So maybe take some from ESA, take some from the African Space Agency, and not be scared to develop our own.
Yes, Africa maybe is a
Yeah.
good example also.
Mhm.
I hope this idea drive collaboration and not the more bureaucracy and paperwork. But I think it could be a really good tool to foster and to drive the collaboration between the countries.
Yes, I totally agree. And Mati, I'm glad you brought the African Space Agency that was recently inaugurated, because I think that, well, this relies a little bit more to the point where we are. But it's true what you say. Like, Egypt took the lead, and that was amazing. And some of the thing that I loved when I was watching some of the videos of the inauguration is that, like, they are launching this to use a space for, like, the sustainable development of their region, and of course use the technology that space has to make, like, real life changes in their continent. um and that's something that we also need, so, like, agriculture monitoring, natural resource monitoring, climate change tracking. And of course they are also in early stages, but I love the countries that have taken the lead in the African space ecosystem. They are the ones that are moving the whole agency. For example, like, South Africa, that has, like, strong space like heritage with Earth observation. Nigeria, and of course Egypt, that is the place where it's actually happening. So yeah, I think that that's, like, a very, very interesting way to see it. Of course, ESA is huge and has a lot of decades and, well, different things, but as you say, it's maybe not the best example that we can have, but actually see from different agencies, and actually, like you're saying, the fact that ALCE was created is a first step, because, yeah, when are you actually ready? There's no time or place to be ready. But I totally agree that maybe there should be more conversations and collaboration between the countries. I think that it was a great effort that was launched, ALCE, but maybe we as countries, as private actors, need to have more conversations and start engaging to see what we can actually do for the benefit of the continent.
Yes, you are only ready to do something new when you already did it. So we have to start.
Exactly. There are many inspiring cases, new cases around the world, and hopefully it's only the beginning. And yeah, I want to say a huge thank you. And I think it's time to wrap up. That was a fantastic discussion, and we covered many things. We covered key business opportunities, the challenge of competing with global players, and whether collaboration is the right path for Latin America's space ambitions. And before we wrap up, I would love to hear one final thought from each of you. If you could give one piece of advice to young professionals or startups looking to enter Latin America's space industry, what would it be? Just a short 30-second takeaway from each of you to leave our audience inspired.
No, I can start. I always like to say that when I was young, people would tell me that space was not for us. Space is for North Americans and for Europeans, and like we shouldn't really think of space. And if you do decide to do space, you will never return home or can develop a career in your country. So my message to the listeners is that don't listen to those things, but rather know that space is a global industry and it can happen from wherever. And the only need that you need is initiative and people who want to take it forward. And especially in Latin America, it's the young people that are moving the space ecosystems. So happy to be here today discussing this with SGAC and yeah.
Yes, I think we bring here new questions rather than answer the original questions. So I think that is important. Make the questions, think about the questions, make the question to your own, and always be curious and try to learn, because from knowledge is where the new ideas and the innovation come. So we are in Latin America, but you could be in Asia or Africa. We are in a global economy, so it doesn't matter where you are. If you have an idea and you have the energy and the power and the knowledge to take the lead and to make the idea come real. So it's not the maybe easy, or maybe there are another regions that is easier than here, but it is possible. So you have to be curious and to go to knowledge and think new ideas.
Yeah, from my side, I would say I'm going to take it in a little different direction. And I'm going to talk about how people that are not in STEM or that didn't study a STEM career, which is my case, we have a lot to give in the space industry as well. So, like, if you're not in STEM, but you're interested in space, just know that there is a place for you in this industry. Of course, it's a multidisciplinary industry. It's an industry that is going to take the world, our planet forward. So if you're in communications, if you are in law, if you are a designer, I don't know, you're interested in space, just know that there's a place for you here, and that by working with the engineers, by working with the people who are in the STEM field, we can make marvelous things happen. So don't be afraid and just take the step and enter this beautiful, beautiful industry that is going to literally change the way our planet works.
That all for today's episode. Thank you. A huge thanks to you, Daniela, Matías, and Gabriel. Not only for sharing your thoughts, but also for the work you are doing in Latin America. Thank you very much. And to our listeners, what do you think? Should Latin America focus on regional partnerships or build national space champions? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and share it with fellow space enthusiasts. And as always, keep looking up and thinking beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.